So we need to understand where the accusation comes from. Uh, the place to really start is the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union definitely does not get enough credit to its contribution to globalizing anti-Zionism as the new and respectable mask for the traditional Tsarist anti-Semitism. As you know, Tsarist Russia really literally wrote the book on anti-Semitism, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a complete forgery, but so successful that to this date it's never been out of print and it's available in every language in the world. They're the ones that created the respectability of the book to a lot of the libels that existed against Jews and Christian in the Christian world of Russia and Europe for millennia. And they took it to Europe with the respectability of the book. And now globally, we know that the Protocols is very popular in the Arab world, in the Arabic language. Copies were found in Gaza. But when Tsarist Russia was brought down, the Soviets claimed to be against anti-Semitism because anti-Semitism belonged to Tsarist Russia. And especially after World War II, when they defeated the Nazis, they could not be associated with the anti-Semitism of the Nazis. So they went about using the word Zion to create this new respectable replacement called anti-Zionism. And they went even beyond the book. They turned anti-Zionism into a whole academic discipline where you can get PhDs in anti-Zionism, showing that Zionism is imperialism and settler colonialism and apartheid and Nazism and genocide. All these accusations are not recent. And that's an important thing to know. A lot of people treat accusations such as genocide or apartheid as if they're new, as if something happened now, Israel did something now, and now we're making the accusation. But if you're a scholar of the issue, if you studied it like I did, you actually see that those ideas have been around for decades and they're not new. They've been pushed and pushed and pushed until they increasingly gain legitimacy. They get exported. For example, Palestinian leaders for decades would get their PhDs in anti-Zionism and all its associated elements, Holocaust denial, Holocaust inversion. Abu Mazen, the current head of the so-called moderate Palestinian Authority, got his PhD in Holocaust, essentially Holocaust denial in the Soviet Union. So one of the things that the Soviet Union did in order to continue this notion of providing respectability is to insert anti-Zionism into the global bloodstream, especially through global institutions, under the cover of Palestinianism. In parentheses, because the Palestinian cause was always devoted to the eradication of a Jewish state, it was always supported by every anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist power in the last century, from the Nazis to the Pan-Arabists to the Soviets, who used Palestinianism, the ideology of no Jewish state, as a cover for their anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. So in 1975, the Soviet Union brings Zionism equals racism to the United Nations, essentially laundering these libels through international bodies. And the reason they did that is because the United Nations just decided that racism is bad. So now the Soviet Union and the Arab and Muslim countries brought Zionism as racism to the United Nations in order to create this equation: racism is bad, and because Zionism is racism, then Zionism is bad. And this has been a strategy for decades, laundering libels against Israel and Zionism through international bodies. So Zionism is racism in the UN in 75. In 2001 in Durban, Zionism is apartheid in the UN Convention Against Racism, and now taking the charge of Israel committing genocide to the International Court of Justice. It's the same playbook. Create this equation of Israel and Zionism with the world's greatest evils, launder it through international bodies, and thereby you give it respectability so that people who consider themselves serious and educated can say that and feel that they are doing something serious and respectable. I've come to call it the placard strategy because you see it in anti-Israel demonstrations on placards. The placards are ingenious because you have Israel, Zionism, Star of David on one side, and then an equation, and then a litany of evil: racism, apartheid, colonialism, imperialism. Then it escalates to Nazism and genocide. And this is why, for example, I have a lot of essays that I wrote about the placard strategy for years. And I mentioned there the word genocide because it didn't happen now. It's been something that has been building for years. And this is why I could see it happening. So, what happens through this placard strategy is that it's not only on placards, it's in every anti Israel conversation, performance on television, international bodies. And it's ingenious because it works like a refrain, like almost a child's nursery rhyme. Israel, Zionism, Star of David equal evil. Israel, Zionism, Star of David equal evil. Now, when you create this global mindset that there's an evil out there, then people say, oh, we have to eradicate evil, right? This is the best thing we can do. That's why they feel so righteous. This is why on October 7th, people responded essentially by saying they had it coming because this is evil. This is why people could feel so righteous now by saying that Israel commits genocide, even though by any objective measure, there's nothing. It's war. The civilian to combatant ratio is lower than other wars, especially given the very difficult urban setting and the Hamas strategy of using the entire Gaza Strip. So objectively, none of this is true, but it doesn't matter. What matters is to continue to create this idea that Israel, Zionism, Star of David equal evil. And then some of you saw in anti-Israel demonstrations the placard that says, keep the world clean. And it has the Star of David in the trash bin. This is the logical conclusion of the placard strategy. Because if Israel, Zionism, Star of David are evil, then you want to keep the world clean from that evil. And this is one of the most ancient and dangerous ideas, that there's a utopia out there, and that the thing that stands between this world and that utopia is the collective Jew. And that is what we're seeing happening right